the unseen royal jewels of British aristocrats you won't believe exist. Somewhere in the private vaults of Britain's great aristocratic houses, behind locked doors that no camera has ever been allowed through, lie jewels so extraordinary they make the crown jewels look like a rehearsal. These are not the tiaras you see at Buckingham Palace garden parties or splashed across the pages of Tatler. These are the forgotten crowns, the locked-away necklaces, the stones dripping with centuries of scandal, romance and imperial power that the world never sees. One was a secret gift from a Russian Tsar. One vanished through an airport and was sold for a fraction of its worth. One carries the crest of a holy order of the Russian Empire on its very crown. Stay with us, because by the end of this you will never look at British aristocracy the same way again. Lady Montagu of Beaulieu's Pearl Tiara. In the rolling landscape of Hampshire sits the magnificent Beaulieu Abbey estate, home to the Montagu family for generations. Lady Montagu of Beaulieu, chatelaine of one of the most storied estates in England, was among the great aristocratic hostesses of the early 20th century, presiding over a household that mixed Victorian grandeur with Edwardian elegance. The pearl tiara associated with the Montagu family is a classic example of the delicate, naturalistic jewellery that dominated aristocratic taste during the Victorian and Edwardian periods. Fashioned with lustrous natural pearls set in delicate gold and silver mounts, the tiara reflects the period's love of organic feminine forms, pearls being the stone of choice for aristocratic women who wished to signal refinement over ostentation. Pearl tiaras of this type were typically crafted by the great London houses such as Garrard or Hunt and Roskill, and were often given as wedding gifts from family estates. Pieces like this one rarely appear in public record. Worn once for a portrait, perhaps twice for a coronation, and then returned to the velvet interior of a jewellery case, passed quietly from one generation to the next. The tiara's rarity lies precisely in that silence. Its beauty was considered a private family matter, not a spectacle for the public eye. Today, the Montagu family's jewels remain within the private collection at Beaulieu, unseen and unexhibited, a luminous mystery resting in the shadows of one of England's most historic estates. Duchess of Atholl's peridot tiara. The Dukes of Atholl hold one of the most unique distinctions in the entire British Isles. They are the only private citizens in Europe legally permitted to maintain a private army, the Atholl Highlanders. It is fitting, then, that the Duchess of Atholl would possess a jewel as singular as the family itself. The peridot tiara associated with the Duchess of Atholl is a remarkable piece for one specific reason. Peridot, that distinctive, vivid lime green gemstone born from volcanic activity deep within the earth, was almost never used in aristocratic tiaras. The stone lacks the imperial prestige of ruby or sapphire, and its unusual colour made it a bold choice. Yet that is precisely what makes this tiara so arresting. Set in gold with the warm, slightly yellowish-green fire that only the finest Burmese or Egyptian peridots carry, the tiara speaks to a family willing to follow its own aesthetic rather than court fashion. Blair Castle in Perthshire, the ancestral seat of the Atholl family, holds centuries of accumulated family treasures behind its whitewashed walls. The peridot tiara almost certainly remains within that collection, among the portraits and Highland relics of one of Scotland's most powerful dynasties. It is not a tiara designed to be seen at coronations or state openings. It was made for a Duchess of the Highlands, and the Highlands have kept it beautifully, stubbornly secret. Lady Hesketh's Cartier Aquamarine Tiara. The name Cartier alone is enough to make the pulse quicken. Now add aquamarine, those extraordinary stones the colour of the Caribbean Sea in winter, prized for their clarity and their haunting cool blue depth, and you begin to understand what Lady Hesketh possessed. The Hesketh family, with their seat at Easton Neston in Northamptonshire, were among England's wealthiest aristocratic families by the 19th century, their fortune built on Lancashire coal and industrious ambition. Lady Hesketh's Cartier Aquamarine Tiara was almost certainly created during the House of Cartier's most glorious period, the first decades of the 20th century, when Louis Cartier was producing the incomparable Art Deco and Garland-style pieces that defined an era. Cartier's aquamarine commissions from this period typically featured step-cut stones of exceptional transparency, mounted in platinum, often surrounded by diamond pave work that made the aquamarines seem to float in a cloud of light. What sets this piece apart is its provenance. Cartier reserved its finest stones for its finest clients, and a commission of this nature placed the Heskeths among the most discerning jewellery patrons in England. Unlike the flashier diamond confections of rival aristocrats, an aquamarine tiara spoke of assured, understated magnificence. The tiara has not been seen publicly for decades. It is believed to remain within the Hesketh family's private collection, a testament to the fact that sometimes the most spectacular things are the ones kept furthest from view. Duchess of Portland's diamond necklace. The Dukes of Portland were, at their height, among the very wealthiest families in Britain, their land holdings at one point stretching across Cavendish Square in London, vast tracts of Nottinghamshire, and the Welbeck Abbey estate, with its extraordinary underground ballroom and miles of subterranean tunnels, commissioned by the eccentric 5th Duke. The Duchess of Portland's diamond necklace is a piece worthy of that scale of wealth and ambition. Portland family diamonds were significant. They came from the accumulated purchases of generations of dukes who understood that stones, unlike land, could be turned into liquid capital when fortune shifted. Diamond necklaces of the type associated with the Duchess of Portland typically featured Riviere designs, long continuous rows of graduated brilliant cut diamonds, or more elaborate festoon arrangements with central pendant stones that could be detached for alternative wear. The necklace's rarity today lies in the story of the Portland family's 20th century decline. The vast estates were broken up, Welbeck was converted, and the contents of those great houses dispersed across auction rooms and private sales. Where Portland jewels ended up is, in many cases, genuinely unknown. Some pieces were sold quietly, others may still rest in family hands. The necklace belongs to that category of aristocratic treasure that becomes more mysterious with each passing decade, dazzling by reputation, invisible in practice, and somewhere out there, still sparkling. The Milford Haven Ruby Tiara. Here is where the story deepens to something almost cinematic. The woman who owned this tiara was born Countess Nadezhda de Torby, the granddaughter of Tsar Nicholas I of Russia on her father's side, and extraordinarily the granddaughter of the poet Alexander Pushkin on her mother's side. She was barred from Russia because her parents' marriage was considered morganatic, below the imperial standard, and so she grew up in the shadow of the Russian court without ever being permitted inside it. In 1916, she married Prince George of Battenberg, making her the Marchioness of Milford Haven, and, through that marriage, the aunt of the Duke of Edinburgh, placing her at the very edge of Britain's royal family. As a wedding gift from her father, Grand Duke Michael Mikhailovich, and her mother Countess Sophie, Countess Nadezhda received the Milford Haven Ruby Kokoshnik, a spectacular tiara made by Bolin, the Russian imperial court jeweller, around 1890. The tiara features faceted and cabochon rubies and diamonds arranged as trefoils, stars, fleur-de-lis, and crescents in the form of a Russian kokoshnik, with individual elements that can be detached and worn separately as brooches. At its very crown sits something that sends a shiver down the spine of any royal watcher. The central element is a miniature star of the Imperial Order of St. Catherine, the highest honour that could be bestowed upon a woman in the Russian Empire. An identical tiara, featuring sapphires instead of rubies, was later given to Nadezhda's younger sister, Lady Zia, upon her own marriage. Two sisters, two mirrored masterpieces, one in ruby, one in sapphire, only one still traceable. The Marchioness was photographed wearing the Ruby Kokoshnik at the state opening of Parliament in 1924, and again at the coronation of King George VI and Queen Elizabeth in 1937, where she also wore what was described as a massive cabochon ruby pendant, very possibly another Romanov heirloom. The tiara remained in the family for decades, descending through the Marchesses of Milford Haven. In 1994, Penelope Thompson wore it at her wedding to Lord Ivar Mountbatten, when Princess Margaret helped keep the giant tiara from toppling off her hair by pinning it in place with her own hands. Then, it vanished from the family. At some point after that wedding, the tiara was sold, passing through several owners before arriving in the collection of a Russian businessman. It has been displayed at exhibitions, including at the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg in 2004. A tiara born in Russia, carried to Britain by the granddaughter of Alexander Pushkin, worn at a British coronation, and now held by a private Russian collector. Its journey is as extraordinary as its jewels. The the Bath Tiara. There is a particular kind of irony in the fact that one of the most spectacular diamond tiaras in aristocratic England belongs to the family who owns Longleat, the first stately home in Britain to open its doors to the paying public. The Thinns, Marquesses of Bath, built their fortune on visibility, yet their tiara has spent most of its life beautifully hidden. Created in 1862 for the 4th Marquess and Marchioness of Bath, the diamond tiara is composed of ornate diamond festoons over a base of diamond hoops, made from diamonds taken from older family heirlooms. There is something deeply aristocratic about that detail. Diamonds recycled from earlier generations given new form, new structure, carrying the weight of accumulated family history within their facets. One of the earliest images of the tiara being worn was in the early 1910s, when it was worn by the 5th Marchioness of Bath for a portrait, rediscovered at Longleat House only in recent years. Then came Daphne Fielding, one of the original bright young things of the 1920s, married to the then Viscount Weymouth. She was a woman of fierce intelligence and reckless social energy, later a celebrated author. In 1938, she wore the tiara when she and the Marquess joined Princess Marina, Duchess of Kent, for a ball at the newly restored Assembly Rooms in Bath. The following year, she wore it again for a gala performance at Covent Garden during the French state visit in 1939. Then came the divorce, and the tiara went dark. The Marquess and Marchioness divorced just before the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II in 1953, with the Marquess riding alone in his state coach. Neither the next Marchioness nor her successor was publicly seen wearing the tiara. For decades, the great diamond festoons lay silent. The tiara reappeared in 2013, when Emma McQuiston married the then Viscount Weymouth at Longleat, amid disapproval from his family. Emma, now the Marchioness of Bath, has since made the tiara entirely her own. She has worn it at birthday celebrations, at society weddings, and at Longleat's own spectacular parties. The old diamond aristocracy, reclaimed by a new generation. The tiara, along with the diamond riviere and the Marchioness's wedding gown, has recently been put on display at Longleat itself. The diamond shamrock tiara. There is something deliberately subversive about a shamrock tiara, that most Irish of symbols, belonging to one of Scotland's most notorious duchesses. Margaret, Duchess of Argyle, was the defining scandalous aristocrat of post-war Britain, photographed at the centre of a divorce case so explosive in 1963 that it shocked even a society growing accustomed to shock. Her diamond shamrock tiara is a piece as theatrical as the woman herself. Crafted in the mid-20th century, the tiara features diamond-set shamrock motifs, a bold heraldic choice rendered in brilliant cut stones that catch the light with every movement of the head. It is a tiara designed to be noticed. Margaret wore it with the absolute confidence of a woman who understood that she was the most fascinating person in whatever room she entered. After her death in 1993, following years of extraordinary social decline, she famously spent her final years in a single room at the Argyle Hotel in London, reduced from the grandeur of Inverarray Castle. The diamond shamrock tiara passed out of her personal ownership. It is believed to have been sold, its current whereabouts unconfirmed by the family. A tiara that once sat atop one of Britain's most scandalous and magnetic heads is now simply gone, or at least gone quiet. Marchioness of Londonderry's Amethyst Parure. This is the story of a parure that began, as so many extraordinary things do, with a Tsar falling in love with a portrait. In 1821, the 3rd Marchioness of Londonderry was given 14 Siberian amethysts by Tsar Alexander I of Russia, who had become smitten with her after viewing her portrait. She managed to end the attachment, as the record diplomatically puts it, innocent of guilt, but the jewels the Tsar gave her remained with the family. 14 Siberian amethysts, deep saturated purple stones from the Ural Mountains, unlike anything available in British jewellery of the period, and they came attached to the attentions of the most powerful man on earth. In 1916, those same amethysts were made into a tiara for the 7th Marchioness. She preferred to wear them as a corsage ornament rather than a tiara. The 9th Marchioness wore them as a necklace and as bracelets. Each generation found its own way with the stones, each woman reinterpreting a gift from a Russian emperor to suit her own era. The Londonderry family fortunes changed significantly over the course of the 20th century, and the current Marquis of Londonderry no longer holds a family seat. However, the jewels, including the amethyst parure, are on permanent loan to the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, though they remain the property of the family and can be retrieved to be worn. So there they are, public and yet private. Visible behind glass in a museum case, the stones that once captivated a Tsar, that were worn at the coronation of King William IV, that graced the throat and wrists of generation after generation of marchionesses. You can look, but you cannot touch. They belong to the family still. They are simply resting. The Argyll Tiara. Not every great jewel has a glamorous provenance story. Sometimes a great tiara becomes legendary simply by disappearing, and then, against all probability, coming back. The Argyll Tiara is a Victorian family heirloom, designed as a series of tight scrolls, and was probably given as a wedding gift to Iona Colquhoun, daughter of Sir Ivar, 8th Baronet of Luss, when she married the Marquis of Lorne, future 12th Duke of Argyle, in 1964. The Dowager Duchess of Argyle became its principal wearer, appearing in it regularly as a patroness of the Royal Caledonian Ball, the oldest charity ball in the world, the pinnacle of the London Scottish social season. Then came the night that made the tiara famous for all the wrong reasons. In 2006, after attending the Royal Caledonian Ball, the Dowager Duchess lost the tiara, along with 4 other pieces of jewellery, travelling back to Inverarray Castle through Glasgow Airport. The case containing the jewels was found some months later, and the pieces, worth £100,000, were auctioned for just £5,000. A Victorian diamond tiara sold for the price of a used car. The story does not end there. 6 years later, the Duchess spotted a Cartier brooch from the lost set in an auction catalogue. The pieces were identified and returned to her. The Dowager Duchess said she was absolutely amazed after thinking she had lost them forever, noting that the tiara was a Victorian family heirloom and the necklace had been a gift for her 21st birthday, making everything deeply personal. The tiara continues to be worn by the family at the Royal Caledonian Ball each year, most recently by Lady Louise Burrell, the Dowager Duchess's daughter and a patroness of the ball in her own right. Recovered from the airport floor, reclaimed from an auction catalogue, still glittering, still Scottish, still very much alive. Duchess of Abercorn's Diamond Floral Tiara. To understand the Duchess of Abercorn's Diamond Floral Tiara, you need to understand the family from which it came, because this piece connects, through the most extraordinary of genealogical threads, directly back to the Russian imperial family and to the heart of the Mountbatten story. Lady Sacher Hamilton, Duchess of Abercorn, was the daughter of Lady Zia Werner, and Lady Zia was none other than the younger sister of Nadezhda Mountbatten, the Marchioness of Milford Haven, whose Ruby Kokoshnik we encountered earlier. 2 sisters, daughters of Grand Duke Michael Mikhailovich of Russia and a granddaughter of Alexander Pushkin. The Abercorn Diamond Floral Tiara passed to the Duchess through this extraordinary lineage, reflecting the taste and wealth of a family that bridged Russian imperial grandeur and British aristocratic restraint. The tiara is designed in a naturalistic floral style, clusters of diamond flowers with articulated petals that tremble with the wearer's movement, a tremblant technique that was the hallmark of the finest 19th century jewellers. Each flowerhead is set on pavée in brilliant cut diamonds, mounted on hairpin-thin platinum settings that make the stones appear to hover. The Abercorn dukes have held sway over their Ulster estate at Barons Court since the 17th century, and the family jewels remain firmly, privately, within that tradition. The diamond floral tiara has appeared at weddings and private celebrations, but has remained largely invisible to the public eye. Another aristocratic masterpiece living its quiet, spectacular secret life. 10 jewels, 10 women, 10 stories that the history books barely whisper about, and all of them real, locked away in private vaults, displayed behind museum glass, sitting at the bottom of the auction house catalogues, or resting in the velvet interiors of cases that haven't been opened in years. The crown jewels may be Britain's most famous treasures, but they are also the most public. These, the pearl tiaras, the Romanov rubies, the Tsarist amethysts, the airport-lost Victorian scrollwork, these belong to a parallel history, a quieter Britain, a Britain of long dining tables and country house weekends, of portraits in candlelit corridors and whispered stories passed from one generation to the next. They are the jewels that history almost forgot, and now you know they exist.